And you will now go live.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Policy and Scrutiny Committee meeting, Neighbourhoods and Regen. My name's Councillor Michael Best and I'll be chairing the meeting this afternoon. Just as a reminder to all members, if you can keep yourself muted, please. If you'd like to come in on any chat or request, if you can use the chat bar function. Thank you very much. I'll just run through some brief housekeeping with you if I can. There is new legislation in place which allows us to hold meetings remotely whichever are available to the local authority. Can I remind you that mobile phones need to be switched off unless they are being used for the hearing. Remind participants to use the chat function appropriately to indicate if you wish to speak. Please be mindful that this can be viewed by all. And can I remind all participants to allow a slight pause for the technology to display information and therefore to be patient prior to speaking. Thank you. Finally, only speak when you're asked to do so, and remember to turn your microphone and video. Turn on your microphone and video. Introduce yourself, as there may be people who are only accessing via audio, I beg your pardon. Rather than me go around the table and introduce the councillors on the committee, can I just ask you to go and introduce yourselves on the order of the agenda? Please start with Councillor Clerk. Julie Jones-Evans. Paul Bertie is not with us today, so Julie.
Good afternoon, Chair, and it's my very first time on this committee. I'm very pleased to join you all. I've spent time on the sidelines, so it's great to be able to be part of it. I'm Councillor Julie Jones-Evans. I represent Newport Central.
Shirley, you're taking the place of Councillor Medland. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, I'm Shirley Smart, or for this occasion, I'm John Medland. Not sure my views will be exactly the same as John Medland's, but I am filling in for him. I'm Newport South, thank you.
Councillor Quirk. Need to unmute yourself, Chris.
Sorry. Hello, I'm Councillor Chris Quirk. I'm a member for Shanklin South.
Councillor Tyndall.
Yeah, I'm Councillor Tyndall, member for Brading St Helens and Bembridge.
Thank you. Okay, excellent. So we go straight into agenda item 1. Minutes of the last meeting, to confirm as a true record the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of February 2020. That's paper A. Before I propose or second it, is there any questions you wish to ask on the minutes of last meeting? Councillor Evans, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It was just on the progress and recommendations, so item 4 in the minutes. I see on the forward plan there's the to deal with look at speed limits is pushed to October. Is that the same group? Because I'd be very interested in joining that task and finish group if it hasn't been set up yet.
Yes, thank you for that. You're absolutely right. That was put back effectively after we was requested at full council last year to form a task and finish group for the climate emergency, which is now coming to fruition, as I understand. I will speak with the monitoring officer and we will certainly look at that again. That's very key for us. Thank you. So could I have a second and a proposer for the minutes, please?
Move acceptance of the minutes.
Councillor Clerk, and a seconder, please. Anyone?
Mike, I don't believe I attended the whole meeting, so I can't second it because I don't think I was there for the duration.
I've just had it confirmed, Councillor Tyndall, you can second those.
In that case, I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let's quickly sign those off. Okay, thank you very much. They are now sound off. Okay, agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest on items included in the agenda? Councillor Tyndall.
On item 4, it says COVID responsibility and recovery. As I'm chairman of audit, part of that, the strategic risk comes under my domain. So I don't know if that makes any difference, but I thought I'd mention it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tyndall. It's been noted. Agenda item 3, public question time, and I've been advised there are no public questions for this committee meeting. Okay, agenda item 4, COVID-19 response and recovery. Can I open that up to members? Are there any questions to the relevant cabinet member? Oh, beg your pardon, Councillor.
Chair, we're not having a presentation?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if sorry, Chris Ashman would like to speak on that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and many thanks to the committee to allocate some time for considering again the current position with regard to the COVID response and recovery. The committee's been signposted to the cabinet report that was considered on the 11th of June, and as we're all aware, this is a continuing, evolving situation that requires a dynamic response by not just the council, but a whole range of organisations in the public and the private sector, and of course our communities on the island as well. And I think the main message that came across in that paper that still persists is that the island is still in a response mode. We still have the risk of a recurrence of the pandemic, and we clearly still need to plan and prepare and be vigilant around the risk of that. So the emergency planning approach that has kicked off as a result of the emergency is still in place and continues to be sustained. But understandably, that process involves two key elements. One is the immediate response to the incident, which I've touched on a few minutes ago. How do the organisations that have a statutory role and responsibility to dealing with emergencies come together and deal with it? And what generally happens is once that incident, for example, take a flooding incident, for example, once that incident is complete, then the recovery stage kicks in. So how can that be remedied? What are the resources that need to be brought to bear, etc. As I said a few minutes ago, unfortunately, we're in an unprecedented situation here. So the system of response and then recovery is being tested to the limit. So we keep the response approach, needing to resource that, and the significant commitments that redeployment of staff, resourcing from the government to support our response approach needs to continue. But we clearly need to start thinking around recovery as well. And that's what the paper sets out in terms of both at a regional level. We're part of the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Local Resilience Forum that looks at these issues on a regional level. But also because of our unique and geographic circumstances, the island requiring its own approach to how it recovers from this pandemic. So if any of the members have read the report, they'll see that it's quite wide-ranging around some key areas around the humanitarian and social issues that the pandemic has caused, you know, the impacts potentially around the mental well-being of communities. It obviously references the economic impacts and clearly the risks associated with our economy and our businesses recovering from the lockdown arrangements that were put in place. And it challenges us to think differently about our environment and our infrastructure as well, in terms of clearly some of the vulnerabilities that we experience, particularly as an island community, have been exposed through this process, and obviously challenge us then to think about that in terms of recovery. I think for the relevance for this committee, Chair, I think it's important that the section in the report which talks about us sense checking now our key strategies and our plans as to their need to be COVID proof in that sense, I think is probably the one where the committee needs to take an ongoing interest, and obviously the comments today of the committee around the issues related particularly to the neighbourhoods and regeneration agenda will be really important in informing that development of that recovery plan. As I said in wrapping up, Chair, it's not a case of the incident is over, we now need to start recovering. We're going to be in this situation of managing response, trying to begin recovery, at least for the next 12-month period. And we are in this milestone a relationship at the moment where the government has obviously announced key issues around easing the lockdown and managing those safely, and obviously to try and support effective restoration of services. I just want to sign off with you, Chair. I'm sure some of the other members of the committee will comment on these matters, but I think it's worth us noting again in this committee, as we have done in other places, what a fantastic response by the people and businesses of the island to the incident, and the way in which communities have really set aside past differences in some cases and come together to rally around and respond to that. And I will pay respect obviously to the government as well, in terms of the way in which they mobilise their resource to support our island businesses in particular, and obviously in a regeneration context, I'm particularly hopeful and confident that because of the support arrangements that have been put in place, we'll see as many businesses coming out of the lockdown successfully as we could have expected. So I'll pause there, Chair, and take any further comments and questions, and obviously keep the committee updated as our recovery plans develop.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashman. That's very informative. I can open now, but Councillor Evans would like to ask a question.
Jones Evans, thank you, Chair.
I beg your pardon.
It's all right. Yes, thank you, Chris, for giving us an update. Obviously, things change very, very quickly, don't they, at the moment? But my observation is that actually now is probably one of the most delicate and fragile times, as we now open up to hospitality. Hopefully we'll be getting some ferries back over soon. Perhaps Councillor Whittle can update us on that shortly. And we'll be welcoming visitors back, and also from businesses, they're now allowed to kick people back off furlough part-time. So it's a very, very delicate time, I would suggest, whereas we've got to balance out people's confidence if we're returning to hospitality venues, to the high street, and with we still got this issue that we have to still take great care. You know, social distance, we still have to do the washing of the hands, all the things that we've been told to do. That message hasn't gone away, and I just think observationally, I think there's a section of the general public that maybe just think it is all over, and I think they then put off other people that are still very much in the mindset, no, this is an active virus, we need to do everything we can. So I was just wondering about if Chris, if you had any reflections back from the Institute of Fiscal Studies report that we had 2 weeks ago, pinpointing the island and Torbay as areas where we are really at risk of an economic downturn due to our demographics, and obviously our work profile as well. Obviously we've got healthcare, that's the biggest employer, then you've got retail, high streets are very much under the microscope at the moment. So I just want we have some reflections on that, and I think we need to take a real serious look about how we present our town centres, not only for our Indigenous population as they come back and do their regular shopping, but you know, we've got these wonderful videos Visit Isle of Wight have done, but then how now are we reflecting that back in our town and village centres, because they need to be welcoming, safe environments. As I have to say, the government, I agree with you, Chris, the government's been really very helpful, especially with the High Street Task Force. Anyway, so I could go on about this quite some time. You probably realise I'm quite enthusiastic about all this, but yeah, so if you could answer that question, possibly Chris, about around the physical studies, particularly, I think that's the key one.
Sir Ashman?
Yeah, obviously any report that is undertaken by such an august institute, and particularly in a time of crisis, needs to be given serious consideration. And I think that the three key for the other members who may not have read the report, the three key domains which have come together to provide this aggregated risk for the Isle of Wight are around the reliance on the tourism economy as a key part of our overall economic base, the tourism and hospitality sector, their ability to recover from the lockdown arrangements, which is a national issue, but accentuated in an economy like the islands. The Asian demographic, which you touched on, Councillor Jones-Evans, in terms of the levels, particularly of those over 60 and 75 on the island, and obviously the risk there connected with the prevalence and the impact of the disease on those members of the population. And the third is actually, and it's sometimes overlooked, is the pockets of deprivation that exist still remain within our communities. Now, all of those three issues will have been known to this committee. They will have been addressed and highlighted in the regeneration strategy, which we're bringing forward. So in terms of shining a light on those issues on a national level, much as though it is obviously painful to say it, it should help us in terms of any funding applications and further support from government as part of the recovery agenda. So, understanding that we have a plan, that we are trying to progress and address these issues anyway, and they will still continue to be important part of our recovery, will be the message that we need to get across to the government when and if they provide the support for recovery, as opposed to the response agenda that we've been benefiting from so far. I think the point of perception is an important one, and Councillor Jones-Evans makes the right point that it is a very difficult time at the moment in terms of the balancing of the behaviours, as we talked about, with the need to restart that economic offer. And I think obviously the publication this week of the outbreak control plan would be really the reference point on which to provide confidence to communities that should any local incidences occur, we will obviously have a plan to be able to respond to those so that they don't grow and create further lack of confidence. The wider point on perception, I think, is equally important for various reasons over, not just the IFS report, but also due to our participation in the piloting of the COVID app position. The profile of the island has actually been quite high, and from a regeneration professional's perspective, that's quite an opportunity. So in terms of actually highlighting the island and the benefits that it offers as a place to live and work, and the benefits that people enjoy here as compared to other environments, is actually an opportunity for us. And I think obviously the committee's views will be important on this, but I think it will be important for us as an island to think about what message we send to the outside world about how we've dealt with this, but also what vision we have for the future of the island as we move into a recovery environment.
Thank you very much. There's a supplementary from Councillor Jones-Evans, and then I'll bring in Councillor Tyndall.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. It was just really the question I ask every time I come to this committee is, and at full council, is where is our £6 million that we're due from the government? So I'm getting a lot of feedback Is that better? No.
Chair, would you like me to respond?
Yes, please. Just to clarify, have you had a headset close to your laptop that might be interfering?
Just my earphone, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, sorry, it was really just in light of that, Chris, in light of the fact that we've been so proactive with embracing the app, and such a great take up, and the fact that this fiscal studies report has that message gone up loud and clear to government that we really do deserve to have this £6 million or whatever it is now per year, just to put us on a level playing field with everybody else.
I think there's no question that the administration in particular uses every opportunity to raise that point. I think it's not appropriate for me to give a personal reflection, but I think our case is now going to be potentially challenged because obviously every area has been impacted by the pandemic, and the government has a massive job now in terms of bringing the four nations with the other governments back into a recovery agenda. So I'd like to think not, but I think our challenge in the short term will be how our case is heard amongst this cacophony, if you like, of need that we're going to be experiencing as a result of the impact of the pandemic nationally.
I'm sure our MP, Mr. Seeley, has been loud and clear talking about the island deal. So I know he said that yesterday. So I'll keep my hope going. I'll keep asking.
thank you, Councillor Tyndall.
Right, two questions. First one for you, Chris, is I take it you're working with Wendy Piera to update the pandemic strategic risk, which is on the register. So anything you've learned, whether that will change that, which I take it you're going to say yes to. But the second one is most people are still worried about the visitors coming. And as there are only a few points of entry onto the island, are there going to be any checking of people that are coming in, checking their temperature or anything else, or even asking them to give some information so we know where they are, just to give the people who live on the island a little bit more confidence that we're not going to be swamped by plague-ridden visitors?
Yeah, I can provide. I can ask colleagues to provide a detailed answer on that to the councillor if I might. But the arrangements that Visit Isle of Wight are promoting with their members is to initiate the detailing of obviously of the addresses and contact details of those who stay in accommodation on the island, so that again their contact set as part of the test and trace approach would be available. So I know that particular measure is part of the equation. As far as the public transport arrangements, obviously we're all aware of the requirement now on public transport to wear face masks as a key requirement. My apologies, Councillor, I'm not aware whether there are any other measures being proposed by the companies in terms of temperature checking or those issues, and we can update the committee specifically in more detail on what their plans are.
If I may, just a very brief supplementary. If I could have that for my audit meeting on the 27th of July, that will be helpful. Finished.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tyndall. Can I just welcome in Councillor Paul Bertie? If you are there, Paul, can you make yourself known? Right, okay, perhaps not. Okay, members, are there any further questions? Councillor Jones-Evans, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I thought other members were going to be coming. I don't want to hog this. I could quite easily do so. I was just wondering, if we could get an update from Councillor Whittle regarding the ferries. I know he's been championing getting the catamaran back again. And I've also put a question in the box there Obviously, this is all part of recovery. And are we going to be having an update from the Director of Neighbourhoods on the social distancing measures and temporary cycling and walking infrastructure projects, please?
Excellent, thank you. Can I then invite in Councillor Whittle, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think I'm going to wait for 2 minutes or 2 seconds for them to put me on. Am I here? Can you see me? Okay, so the ferries, we've still got complications with the fast cat, which is very distressing when you think that that was one of the ferry services that particularly serves the commute and tourism for sustainable transport, because many people, even from the near region, come over on their cycles, because you can get more on the fast cat than you can on the hovercraft, and they cycle around, or they get Island Line to Sandown or Shanklin and cycle from there and come back. So the fast cat not working is actually affecting our resorts. And what's happening is where the ferry companies, well, Whiting in particular, are choosing to direct more people to use the car ferries, they're encouraging more vehicles over here and less sustainable transport, which is disappointing, because not forgetting the Isle of Wight has lost most of its coach visitors because of national holidays going bust. So the only way we're going to get people coming here is via the train and ferry, which is a rail-to-rail connection, which is very disappointing when you think about the government is funding to the tune of millions cross-Solent ferries and railways, but we've ended up with one of the only broken rail links in the country. And that's actually excluding people who don't have vehicles from coming here. And I think I'm talking to the MP now, who did try to talk to the what they call the Isle of Wight Transport and Infrastructure Board. He sent them a letter, but he didn't have a very good response from them to do with the fast cat. However, there's another car ferry going to run from Yarmouth mid this month, so that's another car ferry, but I would like to see a better link to Ryde and the other resorts via Island Line, which, not forgetting, we're trying to ask for 60 million off the government to do up Island Line, and they want to spend that money to up the ridership, and at the moment the ridership is not very good at all. So I would really like to see Whitelink doing their part to get the fast cat going for Ryde, as the hover travel is a very good service, but it's not very well linked to the rail. And the other thing I've got the MP working on at the moment is for him to try and lobby the minister to change the message for riding on public transport, because it was they didn't recommend people make non-essential journeys, and even to commute they were saying people were better off using their car or cycling. However, with the new less than 2 metres rule, as long as there are interventions, i.e. a mask or a screen, then therefore it should be safe travel, the same as they're saying for aeroplane or anything else. So we really need that message to change, because the ferry companies are claiming there's no demand, even though it's in the Daily Mail that the Isle of Wight and Plymouth or whatever are going to be the best places, hopefully, where people will choose to go because of the great outdoors. And I just hope that that demand figure will be a realistic one once our ferry operators and rail operators can stop telling the public that they recommend they don't make essential journeys, because it's actually cutting off the island on that route. So we're working on it, Julie, and hopefully we'll get somewhere.
Thank you, Councillor Whittle, because the thing is, we can't afford to lose this summer. No, virtually any business that's customer facing on the island benefits from our tourism. You know, I challenge anyone who's in that arena that they don't benefit from tourism. So we can't afford to lose this summer. Otherwise, it will be three winters in a row essentially, and we'll have it'll be a famine. It's quite serious. We need to get those ferries running. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, before I go to Councillor Quirk has an observation and then a question from Councillor Ward, there is a question from Wendy Pereira, and the question is, beg your pardon, a response from Wendy. We can provide a more detailed response in relation to temperature testing via our Director of Public Health. So thank you for that. Councillor Quirk, observation, please.
Yeah. This is a policy and scrutiny committee. It's very difficult to scrutinise what's happening in terms of the regeneration and return to normality, because that's very much work in progress. In terms of policy, it sounds as if we're going in the right direction, and possibly we should give some encouragement to actually open up tourism on the islands and the stuff that Wayne is telling us about, and also to do that in a safe way and sort of making sure that we are addressing the public realm and making that safe as well, and continue to make that safe, but in a realistic way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, response from Councillor Whittle, please.
Yes, Visit Isle of Wight are in the middle of making a safety video to go on the ferries, telling visitors how to be safe on the island, because obviously they're doing these online training meetings for all of our various sectors, but at the same time they're making a separate film that will be played on the ferries when people come over here, telling them how to visit our island safely, how to visit different destinations safely and businesses, and what to do if they think that there is a problem with COVID-19 and what they have to do. So there is safety guidance going to be in place for that. And there's also going to be, there's a lovely advertisement that they can go on social media with at the moment. And I'd recommend you all have a look at it. It's a lovely VT of the island saying the island is waiting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whittle. Councillor Ward has a question. Ian, you need to unmute yourself, please.
I just wanted to add to the discussion about ferries. The Infrastructure Task Force met with the ferry companies on Monday, and I know Wayne's feelings towards the fast cat, and the answer from Whitelink is there's no demand, and I raised Wayne's question is how can you raise demand if it's not running? So and they came, okay, I'll tell you the answers. As you probably realise that the fast cat passengers are being channeled towards hover travel or the car ferry. Okay, the hover travel say that even with their combined passengers, their occupancy levels are about 67% on average. They say that normally 10,000 people a day cross between the island and the mainland. That's down to 1,000 at the moment. South Western Railway also say that the travel rail usage is very low. It's rising slightly now, but there is no, even the traffic from Portsmouth to London isn't growing significantly. It's quite difficult actually. Red Funnel, as you know, have started the Red Jet on a very limited service, and they say they 40% of their no, sorry, the Red Jet is only 40% occupied on their very limited journeys. Okay, so once again, there's no real great demand there. I know Wayne's worried about cars coming across, but Southern Vectors actually transfer people from Ryde to Fishbourne, pick them up and bring them back if need be. On the other side of the Solent, Hover Travel running a shuttle bus from the Hover Travel terminal to Portsmouth railway station, so the harbour station. So the route is covered. It obviously takes longer and it's not a great incentive to travel. Okay, well, I think we will have to realise that. We the council are going to try and delve deeper into Whitelink's rationale, you know, because the fast cat is important to us. We all know that, and if we can, you know, get it back up and running, it will benefit us all. But of course, I mean, some people also don't want it running. They don't want them coming across here, and I know that affects the business community greatly. But there is this dividing opinion that's going on at the moment. I mean, I heard several comments when we saw all the Bournemouth stuff on TV, and people were saying, "Thank goodness for the ferries because they can't come over here." So there is a divide of opinion, and I wouldn't like to say who's right or who's wrong. Okay, I just want to add that there was an intensive discussion on Monday about this, and we're going to look deeper into it. That's it, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Jones-Evans, you have a question? Oh.
Yeah, it was just I put it in the box. Are we going to get an update from the Director of Neighbourhoods regarding the? I'll get my question up again. Social distancing measures to date, the future of them, and the temporary cycling and walking infrastructure. I believe there's that the government have provided some funding to get some temporary stuff in. And I think for Newport and Rye, particularly with their LC whips in place, is a great opportunity here.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rowland?
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yes. In terms of social distancing, we've now completed the round of signs, stencils and 2 metre spacing. We've completed these in Shanklin, Sandown, Ventnor, Newport, Ryde, Cowes and Yarmouth. As I said, these are signs, stencils with 2 metre spacing dots in those town areas. That also goes together with the messages and the advice we've been providing to businesses. So we've been providing lots of collateral information to individual businesses to support them reopening and to provide them advice as to how they can operate queues both within their businesses and outside their businesses as well. Decision has been taken to leave the works as they are now because we've done most of the town centres. We have put those out as that statement of intent, meeting government guidance and providing that support to businesses to reopen. The intention is that those short-term measures, they're all short-term measures, are a statement of intent, and they're intended to be there for at least the next 12 weeks. The paint that's actually been provided, the stenciling and the painting on the ground is intended to be washed away within the period of about a year. So they're not permanent markings. Now, any other further measures that we intend to do in any of the towns needs to be obviously in consultation with the towns themselves and with business groups, and that will form more longer term to medium term measures that we want to introduce as part of reopening towns in that longer period. So that's a sort of an update on the social distancing measures. In terms of the cycling and walking, there's an initial £62,000 that's been made available by the government for us to introduce some cycling and walking measures. We are in the process now of working those up. Some of them came from the, well, they actually all the schemes came from the LC whip. We're now looking at those in terms of traffic impacts and actually drawing them up. We've got a delivery period of about 6 to 8 weeks to put those on the ground.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rowland.
Supplementary, if I may, sorry, Chair. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Rowland, for that update. Look forward to, I think most towns and villages look forward to be able to supplement the social distancing in a sort of a more sort of a friendly way. I've had some feedback from people just coming into my business saying the red and white sort of measures makes them feel quite anxious because it's sort of a danger warning kind of sign. So I've seen other areas have more a different approach. So I'm really glad to hear that we can individual communities can talk about the next stage. That's really good. How we're talking regarding the walking and cycling, you mentioned about traffic impact. How do we balance that? This obviously, because any making more space for people on the bike or for walking is probably pretty much going to have an impact on vehicle movement. So how do we circle that square with making this happen and then, but hopefully, you know, we'll get people out of their cars. So we want that demand for that space for vehicles may go down. So I think it's a very difficult sorry, I use this phrase, a difficult road to cross, but I think we always have to sort of take that leap of faith that this is going in the right direction. Obviously, this is what the government want us to do as well, have healthier communities. As Mr. Ashman said earlier, you know, our pockets of deprivation, they're often linked to very poor environment as well. So I think this really needs to be thought of as in the round, rather than just as this is a strategic network and I've got to get my vehicles from A to B. We've got to think this in the round. We really do have to think about our general well-being. And, you know, I've been really sort of pondering on this, because it is a difficult thing with our road network on the island. We're very, very limited in what we can do. But we need to, as Councillor Quirk said, you know, we'd have to think about our public realm. It's very, very important. We're promoting the island as a place for great digital connection, great lifestyle choices, very healthy place to live, you know, beautiful place to live. All of this, but this to me is the missing link. You know, creating this sustainable transport network. You know, with the West White infrastructure, the cycleway, getting the permeability into our main towns, having commuter works, and when you're actually in a town, to be able to walk around without fear of getting run over. I know it's a big job, but I'm so pleased the government have given some funding so that we can start our journey. So thank you very much for all the work you're doing on this, Mr. Rowland.
Thank you very much. Can I just remind members, if they do have a question, to actually not type it in the message bar, but actually request that they want to ask a question. So, Councillor Quirk, please.
Just in regard to cycling, 2 times in my past career, I've worked in Milton Keynes. It has a very high level of cycle usage, but it achieves it by keeping the cycles and the cars on separate pieces of tarmac. And I think it's something, if you're looking at really encouraging a high level of cycle usage, that's something that you really need to start to think about. Cars and cycles don't actually mix very well on high-speed roads.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions from members, please? No. Okay, wonderful. We go on to agenda item 5, the public space protection orders, the consultation. That's paper B. You probably would have read the 24-page LGA white paper on that for guidance. Can I open that one up to members, please? Okay, so Mr. Rowland, would you like to give an update on where we are on that one, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think as Paul Thistlewood has pointed out, Mr. Thistlewood, that we're just coming to the end of the consultation, so we haven't had the opportunity to look at the results yet, but we can say that we've had 1,022 survey returns, we've had 50 emails, and we've had 3 handwritten replies. So what we're going to be doing is working through those over the next couple of weeks, and we will ensure that we come to the next committee to report back, or any mechanism that we can do before any decisions made by Cabinet on the public safety protection orders.
That's great. Thank you very much. Can I just make a comment in regards to what you said there? I think it'd be really beneficial actually as regards to the Policy and Scrutiny Committee if members could be engaged with the relevant Cabinet member and yourself. I mean, we feel that could really go in some way of shaping that particular policy once it goes live. And thank you very much for the update. Is there any questions on that one? Oh, yes, and so we next meet on the 1st of October, so I trust we can have an engagement involvement before then.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Can I just say, Chairman, just as a additional, that there isn't a huge amount of difference between the new public space protection orders and the existing activities. So in terms of changes, there aren't that many, particularly due to what came back from the consultation. The fact that people didn't really want those changes, and that's reflected in the new public space protection orders. That there isn't a great deal of change. We were required to change them because of a change in the law. So yes, we will be engaging with you on that process, but just to make people aware that there isn't a huge amount of change in there.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, if members haven't got any more questions, we'll move to agenda item 6, transport for the southeast, transport southeast proposal. And can I open that up to Ian Ward, please, Councillor Ward? Councillor Ward, if you could unmute yourself, that'd be good.
Right. Transport for the southeast is a body that is coming into being. It's not established yet. It needs the Secretary of State to agree it. But essentially, transport for the southeast is looked at the transport spend in southeast England. And I think if you've read the paper, you'll see most of it is dominated by Transport for London, okay, which denudes us of, let's say, our share of the money that we think we ought to get. There are lots of things in the southeast where we have no representation. We have no single representation, no body as such. We have Solent Transport, and Solent Transport is doing a great job within the confines of the Solent, but looking at the bigger picture, there was no representation, and we based this upon Transport for the North. And I'm sure you've all heard of Transport for London, but Transport for the North has become quite an effective lobbying body to government to get funding up into the north of England. And that's what Transport for the Southeast sets out to do here. When we came into office, we were approached by the leader of East Sussex Council, he and his team were driving this. And they came and visited us and basically explained what the project was all about, and would we like to join. And I think a decision had been made previously about Southampton would represent us. Which is fine, but we said no, actually we would like to take a chair at the table, and as such there's a sub board, a temporary sub board of 6 councillors, and I am one of those. So we have quite a good, or sort of say, high level representation within Transport for the Southeast. And let me tell you, at one of the very first meetings that I went to, the officers had listed all the transport in the southeast, all the different types of transport in the southeast. And I looked down this list, and of course, I looked for ferries, and it wasn't there. And I said, what about the Isle of Wight ferries? And they all looked at each other and said, oh, yeah. And in fact, the person who was from Southampton, who was going to represent us, said, do you know what? I never even thought of that. Because we're focused on cross-channel ferries, not cross-Solent ferries. So just having a chair at the table was able to bring that to their attention, that, you know, the ferries are actually strategic routes for us and really important. And that's the main purpose of Transport for the Southeast, to look strategically across the Southeast and be a representative body in terms of transport. And I just point your attention to buses, all right? Effectively, we only have one bus company, and there is nothing to influence that on terms of fares and services and things like that. We are, I don't say dependent upon the goodwill of that bus company. That's not quite true, but you know what I mean. There is no competition. But if you go across the Solent, each of those major cities and what have you have several bus companies running around, so there is natural competition there. Transport for the Southeast would have the ability to have let's say a Southeast policy, if you like, and represent us to bus companies, things like that. It would also represent us to the LEP, get funding from the LEP for transport issues, so on and so forth. We presented this in Westminster, the notion. All our MPs for the South East came. They all support it. The Secretary of State at the time for Transport was Chris Grayling. He supported it as well, but did say at the time, now is not the time for us to accept it, but wanted us to be in being, and actually funded us to the tune of £1 million to develop transport for the South East. I don't know what much more I can say. It will be a representative body for transport, and we are included, and we are at the top table there. I think it would be a mistake not to take part. Okay, and I put that to you really. It is the future, and I know South West are looking for their own transport body as well now to do that. So we have regional transport bodies. Okay, the proposal has gone to the DfT, but they have told us they will not make a decision for several months by the time they examine the case and so on and so forth. But I think we have every expectation that they will agree. That's it, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ward. Can I bring in Councillor Jones-Evans, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ward, for that, because I read the paper from last year, and of course ferries weren't in there, were they? So can you just confirm to me again, in case I missed, sorry, I might have missed it, that the ferries now are on that list of types of transport that is it within the remit of this new body?
Well, no, I can't confirm that because it isn't, but there is a reason for that. And the reason for it, because the ferries are regulated by a different body altogether. I think we all know the maritime regulation body looks after shipping and ferries. However, what I have got my colleagues to agree to is that once the body was set up, we could then lobby for the ferries to come under some sort of control, you know, outside of the maritime, the shipping element of their operation, but in their commercial operation, there should be no reason why we cannot have some sort of control over them. The DfT, as you know, has supplemented them through the COVID crisis, so there is always a precedent there already for the DfT to act on our behalf. On Tuesday, I was elected as chairman for Solent Transport, and I actually discussed the ferries with the head or the chief officer of Solent Transport, and said one of my aims is to get Solent Transport for the South East to work together and lobby the government about some sort of guaranteed service from the ferries to the Isle of Wight, and they agreed.
Thank you, Councillor Ward, because I've always sort of, you know, travelling up to Scotland, Scotland have a very, very different view on their ferries, don't they? And they sort of see it as an integral part of the road network. So I don't know why England and Scotland should be so very different.
In fact, when Transport for the South Sea strategic map actually shows the ferry routes as strategic routes for us. And also the strategic road between Ryde and East Cowes is a strategic because it links both our ports together. So, you know, it is there. It's recognised that this is an issue, and hopefully when we get established, we will address this issue.
I'd feel much more comfortable here if there was a mention within the remit of this new group. That would make me feel a lot happier, given that obviously you'll be one voice, so a very loud and strong, powerful voice for the island. But obviously, as a voting member, other members may not see it as so important, as it's absolutely vital for our community. So I would feel a lot happier, and if there could be a recommendation that came from this committee, I would like to see at least a line in there that they would be looking at that ongoing as a essential transport link.
Julie, I think yeah, I think that's probably achievable. How?
Oh, Ian, you've cut out. Councillor Ward, you cut out.
Working with our MP along these lines as well, of bringing some sort of conditions to service that the ferry companies provide to the island. So everybody is, singing off the same song sheet here. Solent transport for the southeast, our MP. So we have every reason to be hopeful. But I take your point.
Thank you, Ian, because I think we all need to remember that Sea-Link used to be part of British Rail, didn't it? And there used to be a seamless journey down from London. So we all remember those days, and it wasn't our choice that they were broken up and sold off like they were. So I think we need to get back to those days. So I just think it's a strong message that if I can speak on behalf of the committee, well, it's why I feel that please just carry on and do what you're doing and put the ferries front and centre on the work stream for that new body.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important that we are at that table, because if we weren't at that table, there would not be a fight. Simple as that.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Quirk has proposed that we support this decision. So can I go round the remainder of the committee and request or ask your decision on that, please, Councillor Jones-Evans?
I put through a proposal that we sort of ask Councillor, give Councillor Ward, our support in making sure the ferries are on the work stream of this new body. Is that what you were supporting, Councillor Quirk? Were you supporting my proposal there?
Yeah.
No,
sorry,
I put my proposal down before.
Yeah.
Before whilst you were speaking, I think it unreasonable to tie the cabinet members' hands to achieving something which may or may not be achievable. I think we should support the motion with the encouragement to include these ferries, but not with a mandate to do that, because you're asking the impossible there.
I said that we support him and what he's doing in getting it on there, supporting the cabinet member, not saying that it has. I understand. I heard exactly what Councillor Ward said.
Yeah, I do accept that, and I will try.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Tyndall, do you have any views on that?
Sorry about the delay. No, none at all, other than get it done, Ian.
Thank you, Councillor Tyndall. Councillor Smart.
Yes, obviously I agree with that. I also would say I'm sorry. We did have a voice on Solent Transport who made sure that the ferries were very, very well marked up, and you can kind of detect that was me. Thank you.
Well, I'm chairman now, Shirley.
Well, that's great.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. If Councillor Bertie is there, could make yourself known. Okay, we'll take that as no then. Just bear with 1 second. Okay, members, thank you very much. So we move on to agenda item 7, the Newport Harbour Masterplan. And if I can bring in Chris Ashman on that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In lieu of a paper for the committee, I wanted to share a brief PowerPoint presentation, if I might, Chair. So I'll attempt to load that now. And while I'm doing that, obviously try and explain the rationale for bringing the presentation to the committee. Can I check if that's now on everyone's screen?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. The objective of bringing the item to the meeting today is to give the Policy and Scrutiny Committee another opportunity really to be updated on the progress with the master plan for Newport Harbour, and to obviously comment on the findings that we've obtained from consultation on it as a potential supplementary planning document. For the benefit of members, really, it's important that we complete this journey as a regeneration project. In that our objective, if members will be reminded, is to try and generate the revenue necessary to address the deficits, particularly the infrastructure deficits that exist in the harbour area. There's a significant cost, particularly to the Harbour Board as an authority, for meeting those obligations, and clearly in terms of bringing income and revenue in to address that, utilising the harbour for regeneration purposes for the benefit and quality of well-being for people of Newport and the Isle of Wight, has long been now the strategy to bring forward the regeneration agenda. By achieving a supplementary planning document status, the development will be as de-risked as we can possibly make it, and in a challenging and competitive environment for development and regeneration investment, creating that positive environment and creating the de-risked environment is absolutely fundamental, because mobile capital, mobile investment will obviously identify the areas where they think a project will have chance of success and delivery. So just alluding back to my earlier comments on recovery, clearly regeneration will be impacted in the short term by the wider market position, but having a positive and proactive regeneration approach, a place will have a much better prospect of securing a medium to longer term recovery than those that are still trying to identify those plans and bring them forward. So I just wanted to, before moving on, explain the rationale for bringing it to the committee. So I wanted to really share the next slide, if I might, which is to remind the committee through an overview really of the master plan itself. It has been brought to the committee previously. Just trying to get the thing to work. My apologies. It's a fly through here, which our PowerPoint isn't allowing us to show. My apologies for that. But it is on our website, and obviously members will have seen the fly through, hopefully, as part of the previous conversations on the master plan. So it's been through a massive amount of consultation over a significant period, clearly inviting a lot of feedback, and the stage process to delivering the master plan is set out on that slide. The input from the community has been really important, and what we've got now is a pragmatic but yet ambitious scheme that includes 200 to 300 new housing developments, the refurbishment of existing buildings within the harbour that will create up to 500 jobs, both in construction and in employment terms, and bringing a new cultural destination to Newport Harbour with conference facilities, which the island sadly lacks. On the back of that, there are obviously two key opportunities for an extension for hotel accommodation in the island's county town within the harbour. One is a potential extension of existing, and one is a potentially new hotel site within the near the county car park area. So the master plan has been very carefully crafted to identify its viability and deliverability. There is obviously some significant infrastructure requirements to improve the public realm, and there's quite an ambitious proposal for a new cycle and pedestrian footbridge that links the two sides of the River Medina for the first time in that way, and as a result opens up the development for wider purposes, linking in a natural way the western side of the harbour with the eastern side, and obviously access to the hospital and the college as a result of that from the other part of Newport. So well crafted, comprehensive, pragmatic in delivery, but with ambitious projects to really put the county town back on the map where it needs to be, and obviously provide us with the necessary returns to deliver that that improvement to the harbour infrastructure. So the actual extra consultation exercise just on the supplementary planning document itself completed in April, and we didn't have as much participation as we did in the master plan consultation itself, but even so we had 29 responses. The numbers objecting to the scheme we're outweighing the numbers in response, but that tends to be traditional. The neutral responses were quite interesting in terms of raising an issue, but obviously not objecting specifically to the proposal for a supplementary planning document. There's a breakdown now showing of the issues that people raised in relation to the proposals in the indicative master plan. And I think it's worth just reflecting that it is an indicative master plan. It is designed to provide the development and investment confidence. And clearly each scheme will have to go through the detailed planning process in its own right to move forward into implementation. So the issues here, obviously, the graph is self-explanatory. Most comments were around flooding risk and the character of the harbour, trying to make sure that it retains its purpose as a working harbour, but equally then becomes an increased visitor destination as well. And one of the statutory consultees highlighted the part of the zones and the indicative allocations in the master plan were in flood risk areas. We're obviously aware of that, and they've asked us to do some more detailed numbering and assessment of flood risk in terms of informing their support for the SPD. So our next steps really are to try, identify the resources to do that additional flooding work, investigation work, and then obviously consider on the back of that bringing the document forward within the timescales identified for Cabinet. Underpinning all of this agenda, of course, is our continuing discussion with the Marine and Maritime Organisation to provide a revision order for us to enable us to grant longer than 3-year leases in the harbour, because clearly as part of de-risking the project, that will be another key requirement. So I'll stop there, Chair, and obviously take comments from committee members, and I know Councillor Price has written specifically to you, Chair, and wanted to raise specific issues about the proposals.
Thank you, Mr. Ashman. I will bring in members first, please, and then we can ask Councillor Price, beg your pardon, for his question. So can I open that up to members, please? Any questions from Mr. Ashman?
Yes, I'd like to ask one, if I may.
Councillor Tyndall.
Chris, during your presentation there, you mentioned the phrase investment confidence. But what I didn't see in any of that was any indication of funding, how it's going to be there, who's going to give it to us. It's a very nice plan, but it needs money. And what ideas or anything do you have that where is this money going to turn up from? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, the viability and the appraisal for the scheme is a supplementary part of the master plan, and again I can provide a separate briefing on the detailed viability. There is clearly a need for support, government support for the infrastructure elements, in particular of the scheme, things such as the pedestrian footbridge, cycle and pedestrian footbridge, the public realm improvements we might want to see. Those types of sources will be available from government sources either via the local enterprise partnership to encourage job promotion and job creation, and also potentially from central government as part of the recovery agenda for the UK. So our intention pre-pandemic was always to investigate those funding sources, but there clearly is, in terms of the overall viability, a need to identify that public sector support for particularly the physical infrastructure linked to some of these projects. In terms of the individual schemes themselves, clearly they will be the decisions for those who invest in them and bring the finance to actually bring the schemes forward into implementation.
If I may quick supplementary, and it's really if you could give us any more details on that, that would be helpful, because obviously Isle of Wight Council won't have any money to fund it, so it's got to come from somewhere else. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Jones-Evans, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Obviously, the recent pandemic has had a massive effect on the responses you got to the recent consultation, and in fact, Newport Harbour Community Council, we're about to put on an event for our members and our residents who they could come and see and feed back to you. So there's a huge chunk of feedback missing, and I guess how are we going to recover that position? Because you sort of need that. You need a few more than 29 responses, don't you? I think. So that's my first question. I'll come back with something else after other members have spoken, if that's okay.
I just wanted to briefly come back, Chair, if I might. I did outline, obviously, the extensive amount of consultation that we undertook on the master plan itself, and obviously in terms of the actual master plan document was subject to that consultation as well. The supplementary planning document process is an additional consultation exercise that's required specifically for that purpose. So we've obviously had significant amounts of feedback from literally hundreds of people across the Newport and wider island area in helping us shape the master plan itself.
I think my broader comment really is the fact that, you know, we need to bring as many people along to make this happen. It's not going to happen on its own, is it? And we need community support for various elements of this going forward. So my other question, if I may, Chair, was how, obviously this has been, you know, you've been working on the master plan for as soon as you arrived at the Isle of Wight Council some 3 years ago, and I was just wondering whether the early conversations with possible investors, whether the recent pandemic has changed the mood or the offer that we may have down the harbour. Have we still got the right mix in light of where we are now?
I think Councillor Jones-Evans makes a good point about the climate. If you were to pin me up against the wall and say, is this the right time to be promoting a new mixed use regeneration scheme in the height of a global pandemic, I would probably say no, it isn't. But the fact remains that the development community still exists, the investment community is still there. The strength of this master plan is that it's been carefully crafted to have the right balance between the different uses. So there's a significant employment generation use, either in terms of renovation of existing buildings or development of new. There's a good balance between a market and affordable housing within the scheme. There's obviously the ambitious project of the cultural destination, which is in a different ballpark. But the one area that I would probably want to understand in more depth before responding is how our hotel interests, which we had significant and strong interests in the developments pre-pandemic, how those interests currently view the development, given the obviously the challenges they faced as a sector during the last few months, and what the future of hotel accommodation might now look like as we move into a different kind of environment. But other than those two elements, the hotel element, I'd be confident that the composition of the scheme will still be attractive to either the housing investment community or the commercial property investment community as we bring them to market.
Thank you very much. Did you have a supplementary, Councillor Jones-Evans?
Just one more really about any plans for meanwhile use of the harbour. Obviously, this is also going to take some time to come through. We've talked about it in the past, and there was a early project regarding a market down there. And I was just wondering whether there are any moves to do some meanwhile use.
Ms. Rashford.
I think absolutely we want to explore that, but I think we'd want it to be brought forward by potentially by the private sector. So our role would be in an enabling function for that, particularly given the regulatory changes that the government are proposing around the use of open spaces. So
I think it's a great opportunity, actually. I was about to say that. I think whatever the situation we're in, whenever there's a crisis, always an opportunity as well. There's always a dawn after the dark. So I think yeah, taking the new way that we're allowed to do manage our outdoor space, I think would be very attractive to some businesses. Maybe existing businesses aren't able to operate from the constraints they have in their location at the moment. So and bring new businesses to the fore as well, perhaps. So I think, yeah, dawn after dark, that's what we should be thinking.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Quirk, please.
I'm a supporter of this project, and the bigger the better. But we've always known about the flood risks. Obviously, this, I assume, was actually expected to be coming along and budgeted for. Is that the case?
Yeah, in terms of my comments to Councillor Tyndall's questions earlier on, the scheme has been costed to take account of the requirements for dealing with flood risk.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions from members, please? No. Okay.
Chair, are we allowed to speak after we've heard Councillor Price?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Bring in Councillor Price, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I've written a letter to the committee. I mean, have all members seen that letter and been able to read what I wrote? Would you like me to read any of it out, Councillor Beston?
Well, as chair, I've certainly read it myself, but I need to confirm that other members are in receipt of that letter. So just
yeah.
indicate.
Well, I think actually for the listening public, it might be useful if they hear what Councillor Price is. That might put everything in context for them. Our questions, perhaps.
Certainly, I'm quite happy for you to do that, Councillor Price.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll try and say it as clearly as I can. So I'll get through it as quick as I can. I'm the local member for Newport North, which is in the Mows, the east side of the River Medina, which includes Seaclose Park. The master plan sets out a proposal to make a residential allocation for 40+ houses across 2 parcels of land. One part of Seaclose Park adjacent to the road entrance, and 2 the site of Fairley service station. I've objected to this proposed allocation for a number of reasons. 1. Seaclose is by far the most important and widely used parkland on the island. The entire area must be preserved for sports, recreation and ancillary uses. Fairley service station is a long-standing successful business with no plans to close or relocate. At this challenging time, we should be looking to support local businesses, not looking to evict them from their premises. If they wish to redevelop their site in the future, then that's a matter for them and for the appropriate time. 3. This area cannot reasonably be considered to be part of Newport Harbour. It fronts onto Fairley Road and represents, in the case of Seaclose Parkland, an important green gap within the street scene of residential properties. Building houses on this land will not make any meaningful contribution to our shared aspirations to transform Newport Harbour. I remain very supportive of the regeneration of Newport Harbour and have pursued this since first being elected in 2013. From a local perspective, this should have the following objectives. A, make the harbour a destination in its own right, with publicly available facilities and attractions. B, focus on the interface with Newport Town Centre and benefiting the town's existing retail and cultural offer. C, support the restoration and enhancement of the town's heritage blending the new with the old at all times. D, demonstrate our commitment to all forms of transport to and from Newport, including the maritime uses. And E, most importantly, make the harbour commercially viable and sustainable for the future. I continue to engage with residents and businesses of Newport North who are united in their opposition to housing at Seaclose Park. Irrespective of what the consultation outcome may suggest, it is evident that there is zero public support in Newport or across the island for this housing proposal. It will cause irreversible damage to Seaclose, betrayment of this location for public recreational use, as it has been for generations. There are enough undeveloped brownfield sites in and around Newport to deliver houses whilst not degrading our beloved green spaces. The council should not compromise its position as a landowner to prioritise, through the planning process, a site which would otherwise almost certainly be disinclined to support for a residential scheme if one came forward. In summary, we must ensure that Seaclose Park in its entirety is preserved exclusively for sports, recreation and leisure and general public amenity uses only. There is also no doubt that residential development would have an adverse effect on the Isle of Wight Festival. I could speak more on that, but I think the festival must come into the equation when we talk about Seaclose Park and the entrance into Seaclose Park. It may not take up a huge amount of the space that the festival uses, but again, it acts as a huge part of the festival infrastructure and the physical appearance of the festival. So I'll finish. I'm therefore asking the committee to recommend to the Cabinet that a review takes place of the proposed inclusion of this allocation in the master plan, and that such a review seeks to take an open-minded, objective assessment of the merits of this proposal. So my question to the committee at long last is, will you support my request for an open-minded review to take place as to the suitability of the proposed allocation of land at the entrance of Seaclose Park for a residential scheme ahead of any Cabinet decision on the final master plan? And I would like to just add to that and also ensure that I am included in that review as the local member. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. I think before I go on to members, I think it's only right, fair and proper if I could give the opportunity for Mr Ashman to come back in if he so wishes.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. Obviously, everything the member has stated in terms of the objectives of the scheme are exactly consistent with what the master plan is trying to achieve. So I think I just support that and welcome those reminder of those key objectives. I think I would just make the point in relation to the specific reference to that particular part of the regeneration, that the area involved isn't actually formally part of the park itself. It's not protected under planning restrictions. Our understanding in relation to the relevant owner that the council refers to is that there is an interest in potentially collaborating with the project. So in that regard, the redevelopment of what is and again, it's a matter of opinion, I recognise that, what is the informal green space at best, and also a car showroom has been identified as an opportunity for improvement and providing a new actual framing and entrance into the harbour, encouraging people to actually access the town from that particular area through a new multi-storey car park, for example. So in effect, it is enhancing the role of that area as a window or a gateway into Newport, and the investment will obviously provide improvements to those existing amenities. I think we're all aware that they're showing some tiredness they need some investment in terms of public benefit. What we discussed as part of the master plan consultation was looking at mitigation of the loss of that informal green space, possibly nearby at the Medina, the entrance to the Medina Leisure Centre. So trying to replace or mitigate the loss of the green space by improvements elsewhere. So obviously it's for the committee to take a view on the recommendation. I'm just giving you the perspective in terms of the master plan. Just finally, I don't want to anticipate our conversation in a few moments on our housing strategy, but members will be aware of the challenges we face in providing housing, and these two sites in particular were identified as a priority, potentially with a housing association partner to actually deliver affordable housing for the people of Newport. So I just caution again the committee's views on the recommendation in terms of the overall balance of the master plan, the allocation of units within it, and the particular value of this particular site as part of the overall mix.
Thank you, Mr. Ashman. We'll just go on to members' questions, and Councillor Jones-Evans, please.
Thank you, Chair. Of course, Councillor Price, you have my 100% support with your request. I'm obviously the member for the other side of the harbour, quite a different environment in parts than the park, though we do have the park obviously further down, Medina Park there. Yeah, I think we have to get this right, and it's interesting to hear, Mr. Ashman, that Fairley Garage are interested in being part of this. I think during my part in the consultation, you know, I think some housing there would have been acceptable, but the infill kind of feel that we're getting isn't right. You know, this is our major park, and I've always said it needs to be, you know, a gateway is a gateway, but it needs to be shown as a gateway. When you drive past there, it's very clear what it's about. You know, you can see the tennis court straight away, and you can see the skate park, and you can see the green fields. That in itself is a gateway. It's a difficult balance, but I think I'll support you, Matthew, of course, in asking for a review. There's no harm in reflecting, I don't think.
Thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Quirk, please?
Yeah, I think it was alluded to in Chris Ashman's presentation, but my understanding was that the garage site was willing to be considered in this development as part of it. So firstly, can you confirm that? But I'd like to go on. A nod would do. Yeah. The second thing is, I think it's the scale of the gateway that is the important thing. The bit of the ground that we're talking about being built on is not the bit that's used extensively. It's much more further in, but it's the gateway into the park that actually makes the difference as to whether you actually know it's there and it's something significant. So I would like it to be considered about how it stacks up in terms of the entrance and the impact that we have of saying there's a park here. I think that's more important than sort of saying we don't want houses anywhere, because we have 2,500 people who don't have houses. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Quirk. Can I bring in Councillor Smart and then Alex Mims, please? Councillor Smart.
Thank you very much. Yes, I, of all people, am very, very much not against housing, but I really think we have to, I don't say it hasn't been seriously looked at, but we really must look at the position of housing. There are many brownfields and some non-brownfield sites in and around Newport where we can put housing, and it would be more suitable than, I think, where, depending upon the kind of housing you were thinking of building there. But if it's social homes, which is what we desperately need, then I think we should be looking at other places. And I really would like to back and second or whatever Matthew's call for a relook at this part of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mims, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just wanted to provide a little bit of clarification as the manager responsible for the bookings down on Sea Close. Just to say, really, I can certainly sympathise with Matthew in far as informal recreation is concerned on that piece of land. But just to add a little bit of context, people will remember that used to be the cricket square side of the road, and the cricket has now moved to New Close. The use of that land for formal recreation is now very limited. We've got a reduction in football on Saturday and Sundays, so it's not very used, well, hardly at all for formal recreation now because there's been a change. So I think that just is an important factor. But I do believe there is a role for informal recreation on that site, be it slightly smaller, possibly.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jones-Evans, did you want to come back in, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your indulgence. I hear what you're saying, Councillor Quirk. Yes, we do have 2,500 people that need housing. I just need to reflect back on the map, the housing allocation for Newport. In Councillor Price's ward, just up the road from there in Mews Lane area, there's a application that's about, allocation for about 850 homes. I think Matthew will be able to remind me of that. And also, again, in Matthew's ward, a fantastic site for some mixed-use housing and perhaps retail. And may I say, in the gateway of Newport being Coppins Bridge. I mean, how much longer have we got to look at that? You know, you want brownfield site, there you go. There's a great brownfield site for you. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of put that up. You know, how much burden has Newport got to take on filling this gap, and we need to be really, really mindful of our green spaces. And you know, I think peppering some in this site would be appropriate in the whole master plan, but we need to be really, really careful. As Councillor Quirk said, it's that gateway, you know, to a green space, and that needs to be really, really, really clear.
Okay, thank you very much. From what I'm hearing, there seems to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, a proposal from Councillor Jones-Evans and probably a seconder from Councillor Smart, that we actually take this to a vote to allow Councillor Price to ask the question of a review. Before we do that, the one thing that I will say is that, I mean, there has been a comprehensive, thorough consultation on this particular harbour plan. And whatever happens, I think it's very, very important if Councillor Price, the director and the portfolio holder get together and dialogue on that. I think that's really important. But so is that my understanding, Councillor Jones-Evans? Is that a yes?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Yes, I was nodding vigorously, but yes.
So, sorry, Michael. Can you be a bit more explicit on what we're actually voting on? Because this is very important, and I want to, you know, I don't want, you know, a few words. You know, I want it to be an explicit proposal that's going through.
Thank you, Councillor Tyndall. That is absolutely correct, Councillor Jones-Evans. So could we be more explicit, please?
Well, basically, Matthew, perhaps you could repeat your last part of your letter, what you're asking the committee for. I think that's probably clearer if it comes from Matthew, who's spent time putting it together.
Yes, thank you. Just quickly, Chairman, do I get a chance to respond to some of the things that have been said, or would you rather I just went straight to my proposal?
Councillor Price, just go straight to your proposal, please.
Okay, Well, my request of which Councillor Jones-Evans will probably be able to use this. My request is that would this committee support my request for an open-minded review to take place as to the suitability of the proposed allocation of land at the entrance of Seaclose Park for a residential scheme ahead of any cabinet decision on the master plan. I would add to that that the rest of the master plan is not what my issue is. It is the housing allocation at the entrance to Seaclose Park. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is
Yes.
the proposal.
Yeah, so just what Matthew just said, that's my proposal.
Thank you very much. And we need a seconder on that, please. That's seconded by Councillor Smart. You need to say that, please. You need to unmute, Councillor Smart.
It doesn't like me. Ah, yes, I think it's okay now. Yes, I would very much like to second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if we can go round, I'll call out Councillor Tyndall. In favour or against, please?
Come on, one moment.
We can't hear you, Brian.
Oh, you can hear me. Beg your pardon. No, I don't support it.
Councillor Quirk, please. Need to unmute Chris, please.
No, I don't support it.
That's against. Councillor Smart, please. For or against?
Obviously for,
Thank you very much.
having
Councillor
seconded it.
For.
Thank you very much. I will call out for Councillor Bertie. Take that as a no. I will abstain on that one. 2 for, 2 against. So we have 2 for, 2 against, and 1 abstention. We've got the casting vote.
You get a casting vote.
I have the casting vote. Okay, I'm against that. That motion falls. Thank you very much.
That's a shame.
Just
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, and for Chris Ashman, please, Mr. Ashman, to note that the dialogue with Councillor Price, yourself, and the portfolio holder, and to go before cabinet, please, before the next cabinet meeting, if we could, that'd be ideal. So, thank you. Okay, so we'll go on to agenda item 8, housing strategy. And that's paper C, please.
Chairman, could I please give my apologies? I have another meeting to go to.
That's fine, Councillor Ward. Thank you very much.
Fine.
I think it's me again, Chair.
It is. Thank you.
I think this paper was a request of the committee to be cited on the recent consultation pre-pandemic of the council's housing strategy, having had obviously a quite a significant contribution both in kicking off the review of the council's approach to housing delivery with the task and finish group that was set up by this committee, and obviously during development of the strategy itself and the strategy when the strategy was published, the committee were considering that particular document. So we brought this report, which summarises the feedback we had on the housing strategy. I think it's quite an interesting breakdown of the different responses we had. It rather reflects the schizophrenic attitude of the wider population towards the issue. I think everybody agrees that there is a need for housing, but there is also a quorum of opinion that feels that the housing supply already on the island is adequate and sufficient. So the consultation comments in general are supportive of the council taking a more direct involvement in addressing the affordable housing agenda. It's supportive of the approaches we're taking clearly to addressing homelessness and those special needs. So there's a very strong support to the council progressing the strategy, and the intention is to sense check the strategy as a result of the pandemic, and then bring it forward to the cabinet. I think now is scheduled for September. So this is really an update on the consultation on the strategy, Chair, and obviously any further comments the committee members would like to make.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashman. Councillor Abraham, please.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. It's just to support what Chris has just said. This is a strategy that is trying to engage with the population of the island to see what their housing needs actually are, and their families, to try and actually prove that there is a need for housing for younger people and indeed older people who might want to move out of their existing housing into something more smaller and perhaps more suitable for them. We have to break down the anti housing lobby that we have on the island, because where we have a desperate need is for the lower end of the housing. And members may remember that we actually showed, I think it was at the last meeting, it seems a lifetime ago now, where we could show that we have a housing shortage, and also that we can only or residents that want those types of houses can only afford at sort of 60%, 50% of the market rent. So that is the nub of the matter, and what we actually need to be able to do to move things forward. Clearly, things have changed and moved on dramatically, and I suspect at the end of the epidemic, our problems will be a lot worse. Clearly the housing, the market-led housing, that can easily look after itself, and I don't think we need to worry. But people are obviously concerned about the amount of housing that was proposed in the development framework as we were moving forward. That is going to be reassessed, but there is still this desperate need, and I feel that is going to get worse, particularly when you look at what is going to be happening to our high streets, and I'm sure Julie will have something to say about that. And the people that worked in some of the shops weren't some of the best paid jobs. Those are the people that are desperate in need houses, with also for their families. So I hope you will be able to make some comments prior to it going forward to the cabinet in September. But it is going to be a difficult thing for us now to do, now that the council is going to be so short of money, and we'll probably have to look for other partners through our housing association. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abraham. Councillor Jones Evans, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm picking up on what Barry said about the opportunities that our high streets will be bringing. As a result of COVID, and actually opportunities that have been there for a long time. For instance, for the High Street Heritage Action Zone in Newport, a big stream of that work is looking at reuse of upper floors, which, if you look around, are usually quite empty. So there's a whole piece of work to be done around that. So I think we need to think creatively as well about looking at different ways and the trends in living as well. I mean, there's a huge trend in co-living space, especially for younger people as well. So we don't have to be thinking about large parcels of land and large scale developments to solve our problem. We need to be thinking outside of the box, outside the rabbit hutch, if you like. And I wanted to know, maybe, I don't know who can tell me, but obviously there's been recent permitted development, I think just announced recently, regarding putting extra floors on properties. And I just want to also reassure about our high streets. You know, we may see a shrinkage of the core, but I think we have to be very, very careful with how we manage any permitted development and any loss of retail or any active frontage, whatever it is, you know, necessarily retail, but it could be office or service. We need to be very, very clear about what our town centres need to be and what the core functions are, and how we get around that as well. So it's slightly digressing, but there is actually a huge opportunity here. And of course, these spaces usually have much better public transport links, for instance, as well. So these are spaces where we don't need to have cars necessarily. So again, sort of harking back to the beginning of the meeting, where we need to look at this holistically. Really need to think about bringing all these elements of why the Isle of Wight is such a fantastic place to be, and really sure as a council that we've got that buy-in and we can see all these strands and not compartmentalize them so much. So yeah, obviously I'm on my soapbox again. I could carry on forever, as you know, but yeah, let's just think out the box and look for other opportunities rather than just think about large scale housing developments, if I may be so bold.
Thank you very much. Councillor Quirk, please.
I'd like to agree with Councillor Abraham. The fact that people have moved into their new house over here and want to pull up the drawbridge behind them is not an acceptable sort of place to be. We have housing needs, and we have needs for affordable housing, whether it's rented or shared ownership, but we need to have affordable housing, and I think that we need to have a housing strategy that supports affordable housing that is driven by the council.
Thank you very much. Are there any more comments, please? I'll bring in, yes, sorry, Chris Ashman, Mr. Ashman, thank you.
I just wanted to use this opportunity, Chair, if I might, just to acknowledge the efforts of our housing team that have dealt with a massive increase in presentation for those who are homeless during the pandemic situation, and they've really gone the extra mile in terms of addressing those needs, and obviously just wanted to record that and ask the committee really to share and acknowledge our thanks to our colleagues in the housing needs team for their sterling efforts over recent weeks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Jones-Evans, I believe there was a question.
Yeah, actually, funny enough, I was going to say pretty much the same line. I was talking about the homeless. Obviously, all the work that was done during the COVID crisis showed another layer, I guess, is probably the best way of putting it, of the homeless problem as well. So yeah, I join Chris Ashman in thanking the team for all the hard work they've done. It has been fantastic, but maybe this new knowledge of actually what the homeless situation is like can be fed into our future plans for providing housing.
Thank you very much. If there are no other questions, we'll move on to item 9, agenda item 9, the work plan. To review the work plan in light of the pandemic and the calls in delivering the key priorities within the corporate plan. That's paper D. The there's one item there for the 1st of October, housing and homelessness. Beg your pardon, and on the back page, one public estate and speed limits that was mentioned earlier. So we're going to get that back on the agenda. We're playing catch up a bit, obviously with the situation with the pandemic. My plans are also to invite in Visit Isle of Wight, that we planned back in May, and the Chamber of Commerce, and to include the digital island conversation as well. Mr. Rowling, I believe you're still there. I'm just wondering, I've spoken to Councillor Hastings as regards to an update on the climate emergency and where we are with that, and I believe Natasha's been on leave. So I just wonder if you can give us a quick update on where we are on the draft strategy, please. Thank you. Not there. Mr. Rowland. Okay, that's fine. Councillor Jones-Evans, I think you had a question.
Yes, please, Chair. I've got some suggestions and maybe pulling some of the items forward on the work plan, please. I think we should bring forward the delivery of cycling walking strategy forward, given the move from government to provide us with funding on this. And obviously Councillor Ward has signed off our LC whip back in April, so I think that should come forward. That's actually done for 11 months away, so I think that would be really timely to get the committee's view on the so you say we're meeting in October, did you?
October.
Yeah, I just know that there's this first round of funding, £62,000, which then leads to another application, I think in August, of £300,000. So it's actually sort of coming going rather quickly towards us. So that would be a suggestion from myself. And speed limits as well, I think that does need some work. You might not be aware, but in Hampshire, Isle of Wight, the rate of killed and seriously injured during lockdown was actually the same, so there was no reduction. And I know anecdotally there's been a lot of speeding around. In fact, Councillor Price has left the call now, is bringing that up, but I've noticed that across the island. Lots of speeding going on, and even this will be surprising, but even the police are now supporting 20-mile-per-hour limits in Newport, what they experienced during lockdown. So those are my two things. I guess the other ones are all standing items, aren't they? Regeneration strategy seems to have come up a lot, and I'm not sure if it's in the remit of this committee. But what about the where do we talk about the local parking strategies? Do they come to us or somewhere else?
That will come to us. Yeah, that's the points you make are made and noted. I could just make a comment regarding the walkways and cycle paths. We'll get that on our agenda for the 7th of January meeting, please. Thank you. And I believe Councillor Tyndall has a question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Agree with the delivery of cycling walking to move forward. The digital island, I think, as this pandemic has proven, everyone, as we are doing now, are digital, and I think we need to review that, because that may be the way forward for the island to get more business and everything else. And the last one I suggest we do something on is housing and homelessness. As all the rough sleepers have been housed and put somewhere nicely just recently, I believe at the end of the month they're all going to be kicked out back onto the streets again. Be nice to know, possibly by then, what has happened to them and what is the council going to do in the future. That one. Enough for me.
Thank you, and duly noted. Are there any more questions, please? Any? Yes, certainly. Suggestions from the cabinet or officers, please.
Yes, Chairman. I was just going to make a point that Brian had raised it. I think it might be worthwhile inviting Councillor Mosdale along to your next meeting, because she's obviously does the homelessness and rough sleeping element of the housing, because we are making Barton a permanent place for as a homeless hostel, so that we've actually have something permanent. And I think we've got some exciting sort of news that will be available for the next meeting. I think if you could invite her along to that, she would be able to give you an update.
Thank you, duly noted, Councillor Abraham. Are there any more questions? I think there's one more from Julie. Sorry, Councillor Jones-Evans.
Sorry, Chair. I feel like I've dominated the questions of this meeting. I do apologise. No, thank you for that, for supporting bringing forward those two items in particular. I'm just guessing if there's going to be any consultation, more consultation on walking and cycling infrastructure, and that comes before January. Yeah, it'd have to hit October, wouldn't it, if we were going to? Yes, I see your thinking there, Chair. But I guess that doesn't stop any member from getting involved in any consultation that goes on. And in fact, some of these may have to go under the experimental traffic orders, so which means it's like an ongoing 18-month consultation anyway. So that's it for me. Thank you, Chairman, for being so kind to me during this meeting and letting me ask so many questions.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Okay, so final agenda item 10, members' question time. We've been confirmed we have none. So thank you for your attendance this evening, and I will close the meeting at 18:57. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.